FM News Talk 97.1.
On demand audio.
Facebook.com/The Marc Cox Show.
It's pretty amazing to me that 7.5 years into the Obama administration, we're still having conversations with people who don't think this man's policies have destroyed jobs in this country. In so many industries, but specifically in the energy industry. Unless you were attached or lucky enough to invest in Solyndra, which took billions of dollars in taxpayer money and then went bankrupt, if you were one of those, the top people in Solyndra, you probably came out of that smell like a rose. But other than that, you haven't. And the coal industry has been the butt end of that policy, coal and oil. Nothing would make this president happier if all of those shale oil companies went out of business. All right, quarter till the hour right now. We've been talking about these Supreme Court decisions. I've asked Joshua Hawley to call into the show. He's not only a law professor at the University of Missouri, he's also a candidate for Attorney General in the primary here in the state of Missouri. Josh, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Mark. Good to talk with you.
It is good to talk to you. Before we get into the election stuff, let me get your reaction to assuming at this point you've had a chance to take a look at what the Supreme Court did today to this Texas abortion law.
Yes, yeah. It's well, there's no other way to put it than that it's a tragedy. I mean, and a miscarriage of justice. The court, thanks to Justice Kennedy again, strikes down a law that, or actually a series of laws in Texas, and we have them here in Missouri. 26 states have them. They are pro-health laws that make sure that abortion clinics have to observe the same health and safety standards that hospitals do, and that also abortionists have to have admitting privileges at a local hospital in case there's a medical emergency. As part of the procedure. These are very reasonable laws that have been on the books for years, and today a 5-justice majority of the Supreme Court just strikes them down. I mean, it's terrible. You know, Mark, I filed a brief in this case on behalf of the Missouri Baptist Convention, actually, arguing that those laws ought to be upheld, and it's deeply disappointing and another reminder of just what a fight we face to defend life in the courts and why we need an attorney general in this state who's
Are you there, Josh?
Yes, I am.
Oh, sorry. Your phone cut out, so I just want to make sure. Your point there is why you need an attorney general who's going to lead the fight in these cases.
Yes. And, you know, I was just saying that I was proud to file a brief in this case. The Solicitor General of Texas, who is a friend, asked me for support, and so I filed a brief in this case arguing that Texas laws should be upheld and that Missouri's laws, which are extremely similar to Texas, ought to be upheld. And so, you know, it's a profound disappointment to see those laws get struck down, and there's a profound miscarriage of justice. And you know, here's the thing, Mark. Now we have 5 justices of the Supreme Court opining on what measures do and do not advance women's health. I mean, are they a medical review board? It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
I think it was was it Justice Alito who said that they've done somersaults to avoid following the Constitution or going anywhere close to dealing with the constitutionality of Roe.
Yes. Well, and this is a case. You know, for years the Supreme Court has said that they have acknowledged that states have an interest in protecting both prenatal life, you know, the innocent unborn life, and, of course, an interest in protecting the health of the woman, the health of the mother. And these are laws that were focused squarely on women's health. And for a 5-justice majority today to change course, it just shows you we're not supposed to be a nation governed by unelected judges. And this is a perfect illustration of why. Now nobody knows what the law is. Who knows now what the contours are? Can the legislature pass other measures that are focused on women's health and have them upheld? Who knows? Because the Supreme Court just does whatever it wants when it feels like it. This is not the way it's supposed to work. And again, we've got to have public officials from the president on down, including the attorney general of our state, who are constitutionalists and are ready to stand up and fight for the Constitution.
What is the potential impact on the Missouri law then? Will it need to be changed immediately, or will it need to wait to be challenged?
Well, no, I'm afraid it's likely to pretty quickly come off the books. I mean, it is very, very close to the Texas law in all major respects. I mean, so there may be a few differences that can be preserved, but I'm afraid it's pretty grim for Missouri's law. And Mark, this is a law that's so important. We used to have many abortion clinics in our state where abortions were performed all over the state. And after these laws were passed requiring, again, that there be these safety standards and that abortion doctors be able to admit women with medical emergencies to a hospital. After those were passed in our state years ago, the number of clinics in our state performing abortions dropped down to 2 and now 1. And so this represents a movement in exactly the wrong direction. It's a tragic decision today.
I made this point earlier with a guest we had from the Independent, and basically you have to wonder if the clinics in Texas didn't intentionally, some of them, go out of business so that this could be challenged in court, because wasn't that their argument?
Yes, their argument was that
it restricted access, right?
Yeah, exactly. But you listen to the argument; it's quite something. I mean, these abortion clinics are saying we shouldn't have to maintain the same safety standard as an outpatient clinic. That's all the law requires. You have to maintain the safety standards as an outpatient clinic. And again, the abortion doctors have to be able to admit women who have emergencies to a hospital and nearby. That's it. And these abortion clinics in Texas said that's just too onerous. We can't do that. We can't stay open if we have to maintain those standards. Well, that tells you something. If you can't stay open because you have to maintain the safety standards of an outpatient clinic, there's a big problem.
What are the standards? Right. Yeah, it's a good question. And it sort of drives home. Now, in this case, it would have been a 5-4 decision had Justice Scalia been there. But the case last week that ended up in a tie drives home the importance of this election in terms of Supreme Court appointees. Oh, it is critically important. I think you're referring to the immigration case, and that, of course, was one, and because the lower court decision was good, that lower court decision stopped Obama's immigration power grab. The 4-4 tie last week left that decision in place, thank goodness. And by the way, that immigration case was a case brought by the state attorneys general. So we come back to who's leading the fight here, defending the Texas law, challenging Obama on amnesty, challenging the EPA. It's the state attorneys general. And I tell you what, if today's decision makes anything clear, it's that the states and the state AGs are going to be just as or more important in the years to come. And that's why we've got to have a conservative here in our state as the next AG. Yeah, that's a good point. Campaign's going well for you? It's going great. We're taking our message of electing a conservative outsider. I've never run for anything before, Mark, as you know, and this is my first time. My background is not in politics at all, actually. It's in the practice of law. I was one of Hobby Lobby's attorneys at the U.S. Supreme Court and have spent my career as a lawyer focused on standing up for the Constitution and defending folks whose constitutional rights are challenged. I think we need that in our next Attorney General. I think that's what the Attorney General is supposed to do, and that's why I'm running, and I think that's a message that is resonating. Josh Hawley, thank you for giving us some time this afternoon. I appreciate it. You bet. It's great to be with you, Mark. All right, great. Take care of yourself. That is Joshua Hawley, who's, of course, a candidate for Attorney General in Missouri. You can go to his website. JoshHawley.com is his campaign website, by the way. Great speaker. I've heard him speak on several occasions, and he'd certainly do a good job as Attorney General. And he just talked about the importance of it right there. Steve, thanks for calling the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mark, I have a question about this fair tax thing that one of the previous callers has brought up or mentioned. I mean, I've heard this mentioned or talked about quite frequently or quite a lot. Everything that's always added to that is for a fair amount, everybody pays their fair share. So I'm thinking about this. If a person makes $1 million a year, their taxable income then, if it's 10%, just keep it simple, is $100,000. Now, a person who's making $100,000, theirs is $10,000. A person that's making the millions, people can turn around and say, well, they have this money, they're not paying a fair share, even though it's a flat tax that everybody's hollering for.
Right.
At what point does it become a thing of everybody's happy with this is a fair amount that everybody's paying?
See, Steve, you've got entirely too much common sense in your approach to this issue. That's where you failed on this. The liberals have got their progressive tax policy that they got pushed through in the early 1900s, and that's all they care about.
I agree. That deductions and stuff like that does definitely need to go. But I'm just asking, as far as on the flat tax aspect, I'm not understanding at what point will people say, okay, this is a fair rate that everybody pays, and everybody says, okay, well, this is what we pay, blah, 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 blah. It doesn't matter what we make.
I'm not sure.
This is what our rate is.
Steve, I'm just not sure they're ever going to get there, and I do appreciate the phone call. I mean, there's a difference between the flat tax and the fair tax that some people have talked about, but the bottom line is I'm with you. If you pay 10% of it and you make $1 million, you pay a lot more than if you pay 10% and make $100,000. You're still making more money on it. What difference does it make? But they want to penalize the producers in this country. That's what it comes down to. And now I've pontificated and almost run out of time. Tony Colombo, what's happening?
That's all right. We got our new this week's Twitter poll is up and running at Tony Colombo 971 or at Marc Cox 971. Basically talking about Brexit and whether or not it's any foreshadowing to what's going to happen in our election. So go to my Twitter or Mark's Twitter and vote in the Twitter poll, and we'll discuss it tomorrow.
We will talk about it tomorrow. Good.
Yes.
Stick around for Tony and the gang and Dave Glover on the DGS, which is coming up here in just a couple of minutes. Thanks for joining us. We will see you back here tomorrow, noon to 3 for the Marc Cox Show.